Harold's house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that swallows up the hours and makes you wonder if time has stopped altogether. Day after day, Harold's life was the same. Wake up, sit in his chair, and watch the hours crawl by as the world moved on without him. Once, this house had been alive with laughter, filled with love and chaos. But now, all that remained were shadows of memories and the distant hum of a lifelong past. Harold wasn't living, he was merely existing. One stormy evening, something broke the silence, a faint sound almost too soft to notice. A meow. At first, Harold thought he imagined it, but the sound grew louder, insistent. He shuffled to the window and peered out into the rain. There, sitting on his porch, was a small, scruffy cat. Harold hesitated. He didn't need the trouble. But something about those eyes, so full of life, pulled him in. He opened the door and the cat walked in without hesitation, as if she belonged there. Harold grumbled, but threw down an old towel. "Dry yourself off," he muttered, but the cat ignored it, curling up at his feet instead. She stayed. Of course, she stayed. Harold tried to keep his distance, muttering about how he didn't need a cat, but Mittens, yes, he named her Mittens, had other plans. She followed him everywhere, her soft paws tapping against the floor like a shadow. She sat on his lap while he watched TV, purred by his side as he read his newspaper, and nuzzled his hand every time he seemed lost in thought. And slowly, without even realizing it, Harold began to change. The house wasn't so quiet anymore. It was filled with the sound of soft purring, the rustle of fur against his arm, and occasionally, Harold's laughter as Mittens chased a ball of yarn across the room. For the first time in years, Harold wasn't alone. One afternoon, Harold found Mittens sitting on an old photo album, her tail flicking back and forth. He hesitated before picking it up. He hadn't opened it in years. As he flipped through the pages, the past came rushing back. There they were, his wife, his children, and even their first family cat, Daisy. He could almost hear the laughter, the chaos, the love that once filled this home. His fingers lingered on a photo of his wife holding Daisy, both of them smiling at him. Harold looked at Mittens and smiled faintly. "You remind me of her," he said softly. And for the first time in years, Harold didn't feel the ache of loneliness quite so sharply. But life has a way of testing us. One winter morning, Harold didn't wake up the way he usually did. As he tried to get out of bed, his legs gave out and he collapsed to the floor. Weak and unable to move, Harold could only lie there, helpless. But Mittens knew something was wrong. She meowed loudly, urgently, running back and forth between Harold and the window. Her cries grew louder until a neighbor passing by noticed the commotion and came to check on him. Help arrived just in time. Harold was rushed to the hospital, and as he lay there recovering, the doctor told him it had been a close call. Too close. When Harold returned home, Mittens was waiting for him, her tail flicking with impatience as if to say, "What took you so long?" Harold smiled, and something inside him shifted. He realized how close he'd come to losing everything. He realized he didn't want to waste another day. He started small, making real meals, taking short walks, and even calling his children for the first time in years. The conversations were awkward at first, but soon the laughter returned. Mittens was there through it all, a constant companion, a reminder that it's never too late to start again. One evening, Harold sat down at his desk, a pen trembling in his hand. Mittens curled up beside him, her purring a steady rhythm that calmed his nerves. He began to write. "Dear kids, I thought my story was ending, but it turns out it was just beginning again. And it all started with a little cat who reminded me how to live." He folded the letter and placed it on the table. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Harold leaned back, stroking Mittens' fur, and smiled. Because sometimes, it's the smallest things, like the patter of paws or the brush of fur, that remind us we're never truly alone. Mittens wasn't just a cat, she was a lifeline, a spark in the darkness and a reminder that even in the quietest moments, there is still so much life left to live.